So we invited some of the people from David Copperfield to come and teach us some of these tricks. And so this one in particular, Becky was going to be in a cage and disappear and reappear at the back of the seminar room. And in her place was going to be this big giant tiger. So this is really what happened. So a day before, we went backstage to go check it out, and check it out, meaning the tiger. This tiger was so huge. And in fact, a friend of mine called me recently, and we were having a chat about that because he was one of our security people, and he happened to be with us that day. And he said, Becky, that tiger brushed up against me, and I thought I got hit by a vehicle. It was such massive amount of a creature, right? So the idea was this. So they wheel out some stairs that are on wheels so that I could climb up into this empty cage. And now, I mean, the room is like erupted and like people screaming and clapping and the loud music and the lasers and everything like this, the day of the show. And I walk out and I climb up the stairs so I can get into the cage. And I'm hanging on to the bars, but behind me, there's a little thin wall that's like the thickness, it's like cardboard, the thickness of an Amazon box. And behind me is that tiger.
Holy crap.
I know, right? And
Yeah.
of course you can't, they didn't let us, couldn't practice that because we couldn't do it twice to the tiger, so it was like one shot, you have to, you got to get that one shot. So
we could do this twice to Becky, but not twice to the tiger.
Yeah.
Right.
And Becky's only snack size, so that tiger would still be hungry. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good thing though, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, like behind me, this tiger is snarling and making tiger sounds, this crazy thing. Also, I can smell it. It's that cat spray kind of thing. And also it's bumping up against my back because it's moving in there. So I'm in there with this tiger. And now they put this big shroud over the cage to hide what's going to happen. And it was black. And so now it's pitch black in there. I can see nothing, but I have to reach down in between my feet and I have to lift up this little ring that opens a trap door in the cage, and then lift up another ring like that is the lid of the stairs. And I have to slide down in there like feet first and like fit into those stairs like that, like contort myself. If I would have dropped one of those rings, it activates the back of that cage to come down. Now I would have been in there with the tiger, and I would have been lunch for the tiger for sure, because that tiger was having none of this by then. And the cage was moving around, because the tiger is so big. So I did slide down into those little stairs, the stairs go like up like that. And now they wheel me off the stage and I have to get out and get out was harder. Climb it, run around the back of the convention center, all the way down the side and show up at the back of the room. And now they take off the shroud and here's the tiger. And then the light goes around to the back and there's Becky on a platform. So one of the funny things that I didn't tell you guys before was that the day before we'd worked out in the hotel gym with a trainer that really wanted to prove himself, I think, and he had me do 1,000 calf raises. So my calves were on fire. So I'm trying to figure even how to step up on a curb or much less run. So anyway, that was the thing. And so I was telling this story to my beloved mentor, Steve Hardison. And Steve said to me, so he was listening like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. Like Becky in a tiger cage, that's amazing. And then I said, I know, right? Obviously Becky was disposable. And he said, hold on a minute. What did you say? I went, wow. Yeah, I said that. Like, wow, Becky was obviously disposable. And gives me chills to think about that again. Just to think that I felt that way about myself. And I felt that way about myself for this reason, because at the end of my tenure in that relationship, in that world, that there were so many people and it was constantly traveling and all my responsibilities. And I felt like, wow, like the end of an era wasn't just, and I know we all experience these kinds of things, whether it's a relationship that's over or a job, or, look at the times we're living in. And so I felt that way. I felt like I was in exile. I didn't know who I was going to be. Like, who am I now? Who am I going to be if I'm not that? Plus all the people, I felt like I I felt like shame for some reason, like I let down thousands of people who believed in legendary relationship, as it was called. And boy, that was a rough time for me. I remember standing in a rental house that I moved into, a tiny little rental house that had none of my stuff in it. It was a furnished place. And I was standing there. I was just telling my son Josh, who was here last night. I was telling him, and he didn't remember it in the way I did, but I was standing in front of this like stereo thing that had, like, you could put a cassette tape in there, and I had a cassette tape from a church up in LA called Agape Church, and they would sing every Sunday a song called "Use Me," and it was about, like, take my hands and use me, and it was like a beautiful song, and the whole congregation would sing it in unison. And every time they sang it, sometimes you would cry, sometimes you would celebrate. Well, this particular instance, I was standing there in the living room of this little house and singing really loudly, like, to God, like, use me, like, what now, what am I going to do? So that has lasted a long time for me, honestly. You guys, it has felt like that I've been a victim of something for a long time.
That
And
I want to highlight this.
please,
That is amazing. It, as I look at what you've accomplished in your life prior to that, so you get into that space of really not seeing your value, and after creating so much value, it's like you went from small to giant, and then you went back to small again.
mhm,
And you helped Tony develop the training programs. You helped create these programs. You helped launch them. And then you saw yourself as disposable after doing all that, after creating legendary relationships and then having your own relationship come apart. It's nobody's immune. I think that's what I want to highlight here is
mhm,
nobody is immune from that feeling small. Not me, not you, not anybody. And each of us can go from a giant accomplishment. I remember a friend of mine built up a community of 12 million subscribers and had accomplished a purpose and had no idea what he was going to do from there. Started getting depressed,
mhm.
had no reason again, and eventually ended up passing away in an accident. But nobody's immune. I think that's what I want to pick up there. Can you speak to that a little bit or continue your story, holding that as
Yeah,
a highlight?
yeah, I can, because the thing about feeling what in this, I mentioned before we went on air that a stranger, thank you, God, turned me on to a book called The Book of Mastery.
Hmm.
And it's a different book. It's a channeled book, and I found it in the most unusual way. And it helped to shine the light on the whole idea of of, I love that they call it your small self in there, for the purpose of our
Yeah.
united vision here. But also, and the other part of us is our higher self, or our divine self. And I've had a spiritual practice for a long time. Thank you, God, because before, during, and after my tenure there, and it really is the only thing that got me through that. And I'm so grateful for that. But you can have a practice like that, but then you can take it into a much deeper way. And I really know that what's happened for me this has been a rough 6 months of my life for several interesting reasons. One of which I felt like, having felt like a victim, and a victim needs a villain, is what I was starting to learn. Like,
Mm.
wow, if and then you start, if you're going to continue to be in a victim place, which is justified. I want to talk about that too. Sometimes it's justifiable for you to feel the way you feel, for you to have gone through what you've gone through. But there's a bright light on the other side of this conversation about this, because a victim continues to create circumstances where there's another villain, and then another villain, and another villain. Another relationship goes sideways, another thing, because it's a frequency that you hold. It's a vibration that you are being while you're doing every other thing you're doing. And thank you, God, that I met Steve Hardison, because I met Steve in a really interesting time of my life when I had invested money with again, another villain, and he wasn't honoring that. And it was like, so I realized, looking back, at these last decades, and it's not like a poor Becky. I'm not saying like poor her. She's like lived a miserable life because I have not, which I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes too. But I feel like that idea of needing a villain. And then the next thing was about being justified in it. So that's really what keeps people from moving forward.
Yeah, I want
Justified.
to dive into that, the victim villain, because it you think of a villain as a person, but it can be a thing too. It could be a situation. It could be an experience becomes the villain. And anytime that you create that villain, I mean, that to me is an awakening opportunity to really notice that you're in a victim state. Because if there's a villain, there's got to be a victim. Well, who's the victim? If there's no obvious victim, and you're talking about what's happening in your life, then the finger comes. It's not finger pointing. It's just a recognition that you're in that state, right? Because we're not trying to make the victim wrong here. We're trying to wake you up to where you're operating from. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, because also, I mean, it's a fear state. You're in, a victim is in fear, and fear begets fear begets fear. Fear creates more fear and then creates more fear. So now you're in a loop. And then of course you justify it because, you know, it's right. And as I said from the stage in England, you know, it's just gives me chills again. That's God talking to me when I get that. When that I look at situations in our world. I mean, ones that are like, we were talking yesterday about living in California. It's the most wonderful state, and yet we've got crazy politics and crazy things going on here, and people can't afford to live here, and people are leaving because of taxes, and people are, you can't afford the gas that is, I mean, it's a crazy. But so that's another thing. It's like if you're living in victim, everything's villain. You know, the government is a villain, everything is. And the way out of that is you have to let go of the small self, lower nature. You have to be willing to say it's not worth it anymore. It's not worth it anymore, because it's sort of like having a corpse in the basement. And then pretty soon it's gonna start.
Is this a metaphor?
Starts to stink.
I know, right?
I hope this is a metaphor.
You know who told
What's
me
that
this?
smell?
I know. It's like Ben Buckley told me this. He said, Becky, it's sort of like, I mean, he was the one who talked me out of this whole thing. He said, listen, until you are willing to let it all go. And I tell you, it took a long time for me to say, yes, I'm going to let it go, because of the justification of it, because of how bad I felt about that. But the problem is that like the corpse in the basement, you know, it's going to get worse and worse until you can't stand living in it anymore.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's us keeping us in that state. There's no, I mean, unless you are being held hostage in a basement or something like that, like there's nobody doing that to us except for us.
And you know what else, Ryan, is that then we find people who will collude with us.
Yeah,
They're right. Poor you.
Recruit, to be justified.
Right? Yeah, poor you. Oh, poor Becky, you know, like, oh my God. So anyway, the next
before you move on from that though, the word belief comes from the Germanic glauben, which means to hold dear. And so when you hold on to a story and you hold that dear, that becomes your belief system. And now that becomes the perception of the world. And so that letting go of that story is essential, because we get into that space of really believing and holding on to that victim state.
You know what? You're right. And it becomes, I love that you said that about belief, because, you know, we can believe like I'm a good person. Like, this is not fair because I'm a good person. I'm doing I'm kind, I'm generous, and, you know, all of that. So like, it's a really interesting thing to be so willing to let go of something, because you don't know what's on the other side. But here's something amazing, is everything that's ever created starts in the unknown, starts in the invisible. So you can't move past it until you're so willing to jump into the unknown, because we want to be in control of everything, but we aren't, because that's the small self wanting to be in control. Because I talked about, you know, my spiritual path. Like, I feel like I'm in God's school right now, you know, where it's like, okay, now this is like the time when you can really evolve to this next layer. And in order to evolve, here's the other crazy thing, is your higher self, your giant self, calls to you, more experiences that are required
You,
for you to be willing to go, right? Like, wait, you're like, oh crap, you know what?
yeah,
Now, like I'm putting myself on the line, but
Perhaps the PG version of it all too.
I
yeah,
know it's
My
fine.
mind says like,
I know.
like
I know. I was
right.
about to say that. I was about to say
yeah,
that.
But
But
it's
that
true. And
doesn't mean we have to call in a disaster to learn from. We
yeah,
can just even like it's like I said something about consistency compounds. It's in my document. Like consistency compounds, whether it's you working out, like your consistency or your investments or how you're living your life in this moment it's a minute to minute, hour to hour thing of like remember, this is what the whole thing is. Remembering, I think I said it this way in England, we're chips off the divine block. When we have forgotten that we are made of that's all this is like one reality that we're living in of thinking we're this small self. Then there's a parallel reality that we can jump into and say that isn't who I am. That's a useful part of the document, is remembering who am I. I'm not that small thing. I'm this version, and getting, and really being in that and really believing the truth of that.
I
I can
think that's where
imagine.
the
Oh, sorry.
metaphor of the small and the giant really ties in, is that
100%. Yeah.
we're swimming in this ocean between these two worlds, and we go back and forth until we don't. But until we learn that, we go giant, small, giant, small, giant, small, and each one feels like it's our reality. Like you go from being on top of the world to feeling really insignificant and disposable, right? Ryan, did you have a thought there too? And
It was that. It was just
yeah,
the you build this life and then you think that that's who you are. And then you get awakened to something, or your world changes, it shatters, it goes, that part leaves, and you're almost left with, like, who am I really? And that discovery, and it took a Steve Hardison too to pull that out, because like subconsciously you already knew.
Yeah.
You already knew that, oh my gosh, this is how I see myself, as disposable, even though you've done some of the most incredible accomplishments that people could hardly even dream about. You've lived them. You've been there, you've done that. You've created so many things, yet inside you felt insignificant and small and disposable. And then you woke up and said, that's even creating those things is not who Becky is, it's what she's done. Who is Becky? And then you have to go on that discovery, that journey, just like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. And a lot of that involves grief. A lot of that involves finding victims and recruiting other people to feel bad for you and be on your side. For whatever reason, it makes us justified and feel better for a minute. But it's just what Steve Hardison calls frosting dog shit,
Yeah.
right? Sorry, that wasn't the
Well, you
PG
know what?
version.
You said something great. Thank you so much for all of this. I'm keeping all these little loops in my head. Nick, I love what you said about, you do and then until you don't, you do until you don't. It's sort of like, I love listening to Bashar too. I've got all these wonderful things I listen to and love. And it's sort of what I feed myself with, other than news and all the horrible stuff going on in the world, because that is also there in that reality. But it's sort of like you have, there are two trains. It isn't sort of like, it is this way. That you can be on this one train where you are living through your divine self, and as that, the divine as me, as you, or you can be on the other train, which is victim and poor me and life is terrible and politics are awful, and getting into the thick of it that way. You can jump between trains, but
Yeah.
there's a point at which all of humanity is going to have to choose a train, and then you won't be able to even see the other one anymore. It won't be in your purview anymore, because you aren't that any longer. You won't even recognize that. It won't be an option, because it is the only way you want to be. But I think it's a time right now. I know that we are in a time right now where we are that's why we're all finding one another, because we are in a time right now where we have to make a decision. It really is a choice. And the first, I'm sitting next to a painting of mine that I'm that it keeps calling me over there because it says respect in the middle of it. And when Aretha Franklin died, I was painting that painting, and they're kind of autobiographical because they take so long. A lot goes on while I'm doing it. But anyway, that word. So I took they're big, and I took it down and put it on the floor, and I looked up the sheet music to that song that she sang, like "Give Me a Little Respect," that little bit, that one. I should know that lyric.
Yeah,
we're waiting for you to sing it.
Here's why I don't know it. Here's why, because
RESPCT.
No, as I was doing, putting like the lines and the music and all that.
Yeah,
It occurred to me that, hold on a minute, you cannot ask someone else for respect unless you respect yourself. And then it was so amazing that came. No, it's not amazing. It came to me, of course, that's how it works. But I had seen Marva Staples and the Staples Singers sing that song like a few months before that. And so I erased all the music, and I put new music down, which is now on that painting about respect yourself. And I think there has to come a point where it's like, hold on a minute. You are made of God. You are made of God. And I'm not having, this is not, it's Sunday morning. This is our Sunday morning.
This is it. Yeah.
Congregation, right? I mean, when that came to me, that actually came to me when I was sitting in front of Stephen working through the creation of my document. And when that came to me, we were like, both of us started to cry. We both had tears. It was like, oh my gosh, I am made of God, and I do create magic in every area of my life, because that's what God can do. But the small self can't. So then we get in, get into pickle about all that kind of stuff that, and also thank you, Ryan, for all the things you said about like all the things that I've accomplished and done. And I'm, now I want to tell you another thing that happened the other day, because part of me being willing to even talk about this from the stage, and even because I knew that it would touch somebody in some way, that has felt that, or all of us in every way, we've all felt that at some point, is the idea of being incapable. Like, am I even capable of rescuing myself if I needed to be? And so one of my radical commitment that I made, Gary Mahler and I drove back from the event one day together in an Uber, and we talked about this on the way, is that I've felt like for the last 20 years I had a safety net, like an actual safe. I visualized it like a cargo net kind of thing, that if I really, really needed help, I could go to my former relative and say, oh my God, I really need your help. And the answer to that was no. I was like, my God, what am I going to do? So my radical commitment that day was, you know what, just like even like visualize taking garden shears and just chopping away that safety net, because the safety net was made of fear, of fear of not being capable. And so the other day I was sitting in my meditation chair and reading the trilogy of these books. And it came to me, I'd written in that I like to write in the margins and underline everything. And now I've learned to date it so that I can go back and go, wow, that was what I, was feeling then. I had written the word incapable, and I felt that way for a while. And I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? I was telling my daughter this the other day. I said, Jolie, I told her this story. It's like, I thought, I'm going to go backwards in time and just look and see, like, what was the catalyst for me feeling that I was incapable. And I went all the way back to when I was a little girl, and I always got A's. I didn't have to try hard. I'm smart, and I got great grades. And then my parents made me take accordion lessons. Yes, accordion lessons. My grandfather was just like, I'll pay for them, and you have her
just
take
a little polka.
Yeah, I know.
That's all I hear in my head.
Now I know that if all hell breaks loose, my safety net now is that my accordion. I can buy a monkey. I can go on the corner. I can go on the corner with a little cup and a monkey, and I'm going to be fine.
In California, you can get away with that, right?
The accordion busker. Just be out there busking on the streets.
I know, I could do that. That's my fallback, right? So after accordion lessons, of course, I got stars on my accordion lessons, and then as I went on, I thought, like, wow, my mom left my family our family when I was 11, and when I think of that as a victim, because she did leave, and she was gone for like 4 or 5 years, and and I raised myself, and I didn't have any kind of guidance. My dad was devastated. My brother's 2.5 years younger than me. So I had, but then I was thinking about in this context, every teenager wishes I was like 11 when she left. Every teenager wishes they had no supervision. It's like, all right, but I didn't get in trouble. That was fine. Then I was in high school, got great grades, graduated, decided I wanted to become a nurse, did that with a 2-year-old. So that was hard. I had but I was capable of all of that. I was a single parent for quite a while. That was crazy. And then like life and life, I kept looking for where was it that I thought that I was incapable. And even when I met Tony, it was like, I'd never run a company like that. I've had a lot of people say, like, can you do for me what you did for Tony? Like, what did you do for him? Would you be willing to help me do that? I thought, well, I don't even, I don't have a business degree. But then I thought, wait a minute, I'm really good at systems. So systems are great, and I'm great at relationship. And so I succeeded at that. And then I decided I never wanted to be a painter, and now I'm a painter. I never wanted to do that. So there was no place I could find evidence that I was incapable. It was like, like fireworks went off. Like, wow, that you find a story and you believe a story, or someone says something to you, or make something up, and for God's sake, it's like, come on,
what people present. Yeah. What they present as evidence, though, are judgments. They don't present evidence. They present judgments of their outcomes and then call those judgments evidence. But that's not evidence. I mean, you really look at what you've accomplished, and there is no evidence for your incapability. It just doesn't exist.
I think it's good to go backwards too, though, and to look at those moments where, if you're feeling that way, go find the wins. Where have you succeeded? It could be you got up that day, like you got up. Yeah. Congratulations, you made it that far. You've done that. You've done things. You've done hard things. Becky went to school and became a nurse as a single mom, and with a 2-year-old. Like all those things. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And even with no business degree, people would say, "Oh, you don't have any business doing that." But you leaned on your background, on what you knew how to do with your systems and the things that you were capable with, and then built upon those things. And a business major can't even hold a candle to what you could do right now. It's not even close, because of your experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Because
yeah, you are the business. I love that, Lindsay.
Well, I think that the small self that I was looking through the lens of could not and cannot figure these things out, because this is where you have to go back and remember what you are made of. With the divine self as me gifted to me what I required for me to be, and now and still, like, to be consistently in the flow. I went to a birthday party the other night. A friend of mine, I've known her for a long, long time. She was my first trainer. So I told her she saved my life in the beginning, like the hard training, physical training, right? And there was a birthday party, and I really didn't want to go because my kids were coming to town, and I really wanted to be here, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. So I went, and I did. It's so interesting because I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel like I was, I don't know. I didn't feel like I wasn't with my people. Like, this is like with my people. Right.
Yeah.
And I left a little early, and it was a 4-hour drive. So I had to drive all the way back home again yesterday morning. And I called my daughter on the way back, and I said, so she goes, how was it? And I said, it was so weird because I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was, in my element. I was just observing. I kind of took myself into a place of just being an observer of it all, with no judgment, just watching it. There was a haka guys, doing a haka, like from New Zealand. That was
yeah.
Watch. And then I left when I was ready to go. She's okay. I'm done. But my daughter said, you know why, Mom? Because I love that she said this. She said, Mom, because you're more evolved now than you were all those years ago when you were, all of that. You're just in a different place. So, you're not going to go there and get wild and drunk and dancing and crazy and, and do all that. This wasn't me. So I just felt really good when I left without any kind of judgment. That's their life. This is my life. Pretty happy, So I think the thing that I want to keep punctuating in this conversation is that the divine self that we are has all the answers, because I want to figure things out. Like I have a big idea about something that's in the works right now, but the how of it seems daunting because I've never done something like this before. It's taking a medical product global. It's not but you know what? I never did other things before either and made that work. So it's like this, we have to get comfortable with the great unknown. And we don't like that. We don't like it because we want to know the how, but the great unknown knows the how. And I can't. Helicopter going by.
I have a shirt, Becky, that says, "I'm not bipolar. I'm just becoming a giant." And it's when we go through those cycles of going from small to giant, small to giant, like the two trains. It's when you're navigating becoming your giant self. Sometimes you go back and forth. You go to the old world, you come to the new worlds, and it feels like you're bipolar a little bit. But it's truthfully, it's part of the process because you're going through growing pains because you go small and you move back to giant. Sometimes it's within moments. Sometimes it takes a week, right?
Yeah, and I think, I have to let myself off the hook sometimes because I want to be this consistently all the time, but I'm still human in a human body and I'm still here. But I said it a minute ago, but I do believe that humanity is being asked to evolve right now. That's why everything is falling apart so it can get put back together again in a proper way. And I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that because as those helicopters went by, I was thinking, I learned to fly helicopters and that was hard.
Yeah.
After I learned, I didn't need to keep doing it, but I figured it out. I always flew a helicopter up and down this coast a couple times.
That's amazing.
But it's like the being willing to put ourselves into the unknown, and also, but we're not flying alone. We are made of God, so acquiesce this small fearful self into the part and ask. That's the other thing. I really want to say is that I'm always asking for guidance. And when my daughter has two little guys, and my son has two girls. So when they were all little, and even still, when I would drive them put them in a car seat in the car in the back seat, like, oh my God, on freeways in LA or whatever. And I said, calling all angels. And the first time I said it, my little one who was 3 at the time, he said, they're already here. And oh my God, out of the mouth of a child, right? And so I still do that. And they now know, and that I said, the next time I said that, calling all angels, he said, they're not coming today. And I said, why is that? He said, because they needed a day off.
Yeah, we all need a day off every now and then.
Day off sometimes, but I think if we can ask the God self of us, the giant God self for help, ask, because my understanding is the guidance is not going to do it for us. It's like they're not going to do the test for us. They're going to give us the way to do it, and guide us through it, but they're not going to unless we ask. So I'm asking all the time. I call all angels before I get in. When I get in my car on these freeways, I do that. When I get in a plane, I do that. And then when we do that, we're not doing it just for us. We're doing it to lift everyone around us, which is really important to all of us in this community.
Yeah.
We're all wanting to be in service so much, and we are, but we have to lift ourselves first. It's the life jacket.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Ryan, do you have a thought there?
I did. I was just thinking about, your inner self. You do know. I think innately we're blessed with that inside of us to the inner knowing, slowing down to listen to it really. But the truth is too, we are not alone. We're all connected. I as you're talking, Dominique pops in here, says what a trio, and Dom has done some things in my world that have shifted the way that I'm being. Lindsay Cap has spent time with me. In fact, we're going to be meeting this afternoon, and she's my coach, and being able to see some of the most amazing people on the planet. Ooh, emotions are coming up. Sorry, I'll be quick because this isn't about me at all. I just want to highlight
Take your time. Please take your time. I love
the
listening to
people
you.
that are hopping on this, that are here. I want to highlight Caroline Hughes, Fiona. And there's a bunch of you. I can't read them all because I'm just kind of in my emotions for a second. But as you start to go back to your inner knowing, and you start doing those things and asking that it is about here. It is about you. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. The people that show up, and the connections, and the how starts putting itself into place, and it comes in ways. Ron John, man, giants in my world, just absolute giants. By the way, like I look up to each one of you, but as I've asked, and as I've dived deeper into me and who I'm capable and meant to be, and maybe not capable currently, but am gaining the capability. People like a Caroline Hughes, a Fiona Ross, a Becky Robbins, a Nick Smith, a Lindsay Cap, a Ranjan, a Dom, a Steve Hardison, right? Come into your field of view, and you start becoming aware of these things, and these opportunities start to present themselves, and you become more aware of those, and start following that guidance and the blessings, and the things that come in, and the peace that comes in is just incredible. It starts to replace all of the fear of the tiger, the fear of being insignificant and small, and being disposable. As I felt those things too, Becky, in different ways, for sure. And within the last 6 months as well. I don't know if we're all going through this 6 month phase, but I'm glad that you're highlighting this stuff, because it's really relevant in what I'm doing currently, and I feel like you're talking.
I want to pull a word in, like you both have used this word today, capable. And I had to look it up. I love looking up words. Some of them I have memorized and some I got to look up. But capable is to grasp, to be able to grasp or to hold. And so when you say, Ryan, I'm not capable yet, I'm not able to hold that yet. I mean, not true, right?
Yeah.
The ability to hold something is always there. So it's
maybe it's the feeling of not being able to hold, right?
Yeah,
Like
I don't know if I can hold
my
on to
inner.
this.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So just playing with that word of capable, if we are a chip off the old divine block, which I love that statement, then we were equipped to be capable from the beginning.
Yeah.
There was never a time that we weren't capable. Even in the giant's journey, we don't say you're becoming a giant. And I'm grateful to Sunshine Hemmer for this clarity is there's no becoming a giant. There's only unbecoming anything that makes you think that you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
That.
And most of those things are all under the big giant umbrella of fear.
Yeah.
Because in these books that I'm loving, they call it lies. Because you said, again, like chips off the divine block, the divinity is perfection. Divinity is pure love. And if we are that, then the idea of being incapable or disposable of or any of that is like, that is not of, that is not what we're made of. We're not made of that. So we're made of that, only that. And we get the free will to like swim through the dark stuff, until we figure ourselves out. And I am not the amazing thing on the other side of this, the beautiful golden carrot on the other side of this is freedom. And I feel a sense of freedom that I have never felt before. It's the most amazing thing. And I'm still in the unknown, but I feel like the freedom I have now is as things are starting to come to me, like great ideas, great opportunities, people that I'm meeting that I never would have met. I mean, I'm doing a television show right now that is a show where I'm interviewing people that are creators, like creators of stuff that we wear, we use, all that all the time. And the television show, it's like focusing on the creator. Like, for example, like the cobbler that makes the shoes that Elton John will only wear on stage, like focusing on the cobbler. Like, how did you think to do that? How did you get past what I call it, the dare to suck place? Because you're going to suck at something before you're good at it, and then if you can get over that, then the next hurdle is to, like, my art, like I've got 100,000 hours into my art now. So I feel like I'm a good artist in this context. Now, if you put me into, you said, Becky, paint something abstract, which Steve Hardison asked me to do. Were you crazy? And this is what I can do, right? I would suck at that.
He
for
is a little bit.
Time. Yeah. I would suck at that for a long time.
Little sick and crazy.
So,
but you would be willing to do that, to be terrible long enough to get good at it.
Yeah. So that's the
Right.
show. And then I bring in other celebrities to, to focus on what their part of that is. Or like I've got interviewed to a father and son, Nathan East is his name, who plays with Eric Clapton and Phil Collins, and he's got his own band, and his son is a prodigy pianist. And so I asked them, like, have you ever watched how a piano is made? Do you even know a piano? They're both sponsored by Yamaha. Nathan is a famous bass player, but no, neither of them has ever looked and seen, like, how does that even happen? So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
our show is going to focus on those things. But I'm saying about the freedom and new stuff coming in that you wouldn't have imagined. The show came in that way. But then in addition to that, now I sat next to a gentleman at a benefit dinner the other night, and he's a legend in the world. His name is Henry Holmes, he was the lawyer who signed like all of the famous boxers and people in the fighting world, which I know none of. I know some of them, like George Foreman. I'm familiar with the George Foreman grill, that kind of stuff, and all these different people. And now he's very interested in helping me be an executive producer on my show. And all these things are happening now because in Birmingham, I made the radical commitment that I'm cut away the safety net that wasn't there anyway. It wasn't even there anyway. I was just wishing it was, out of my fear of being incapable of creating something myself. How crazy is that? And so how fun it is when you say, like, okay, wait a minute, I'm absolute pure divinity. I am nothing but that. And I can play on the small level. I can jump over to that train if I want to, but it feels awful now. It feels awful. Even going to that party the other night, I could have been like, ugh, this is like all these people, they're all about, their stuff and their fancy cars and and all that. And I just didn't go there. It just didn't seem like even an option. I just was curious and watching what was going on. And then I left, came back to the hotel, got up early, drove home, felt great, missed the traffic, then little and big things start to happen. And I love that.
So there's a quote by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he says, we hold that we are the empirical decision makers that hold uncertainty as our discipline, that the highest and most urgent human pursuit is moving forward with incomplete information.
Ooh.
And when we look at uncertainty as pure possibility, it's the ability to create anything we can imagine. The only thing that could get in the way of that would be our limiting views of ourselves.
100%.
So I loved when we did our interview, you talked about setting your goals, but you would set goals with an open back end. You have a limiting view of the world and you would set according to that limiting view, but you would open it up to, and God, whatever beyond that you want to bring me, I'm open to.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, because then Karam called me on that. It's like, well, of course you have to set goals. And I agree with him. Like I have I now, like, I have a planner here. I have I do all that, today's Sunday. So I do all that.
Yeah.
I have to do that because there are a lot of moving parts now going on. And I want to have something happen that is beyond my wildest imagination. And that's the divinity part, like honest to God, I look out here and there's a tree here that's filled with ravens, which I just now learned that I like these kinds of things. Like I know that crows, it's like a murder of crows or a conspiracy of ravens. So I've got ravens, like there's some little berries in this tree and they're plucking them out of here and they're going next door. There's a water feature next door and I can see it from up. I'm in my studio upstairs and they drop it in the water feature. And then I don't know if they're washing it, softening it, and then they pluck it out. And now they're all around me all the time because they're just used to me and they've decided this is their territory. So that is so, I mean, when you look at that, like the intelligence of that creature, the tree that's bearing the fruit for that creature, like how I'm in awe all the time now because I'm noticing that instead of the purview I had of like, oh God, I hope he comes through and, rescues me. And, it's a blessing that here I am. And now, like, I loved your quote, but will you send that to me, Nick? That
yes. Yeah.
philosopher, that's just so amazingly powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that, living in that, because when you live in that unknown, because we're not used to that, we want to know everything. I want to know like my bank balance. I actually don't want to know that, but like I want to know what's going to happen and I just can't force it because then I make it less than it could possibly be.
There's a couple of things I want to highlight real quick. One is when you speak crazy into the world, crazy shows up. There's Steve Hardison. I love it. We talk about Steve and Steve. I think Steve has like this
Oh my
beacon
God, I love
where
him.
you speak his name somewhere and Steve's like, there's a disturbance in the force. And then he's like, I gotta go.
Oh my God.
Reminds me of Anchorman when they yell for Baxter.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They call for Baxter yells for all the help.
Yeah, and Steve comes running. I love it. Thank you, Steve, for
The
doing
shoe
that. That's
fits.
amazing and showing us all the possibilities. I also wanted to highlight, I'm listening to some stuff on money and some of the blocks that I've had in the past about money. And this works for all kinds of the flow of life. And so you're talking about some things and you kind of brushed over them because this is just how you're now operating, how you're choosing to be now. Like you went to that event, you're like, I'm gonna have a good attitude. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna observe. I'm gonna be happy. I'm not gonna force anything. There's nothing planned. I'm not gonna get caught up in their weeds. I'm just gonna just go and just be. And you're like a kid in awe with curiosity, childlike wonder, and things flow in. Now you have intention, and you had to show up to the party, and you got to do these things, and you showed up to Birmingham and you made a radical commitment, and since then you've progressed in that. You don't just make a commitment and be like, all right, let's see here. You got to do something still.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to highlight some of those things because people could get lost in it and be like, okay, I got to plan this out and I got to plan this out. I got to do this. And disappointment. This didn't work out. Well, who says it's not working out? Maybe it's
Yeah.
working out exactly how it's supposed to
Yes, I
go.
love that you said that. Thank you. Because who says, that like God is in all around. It can do anything. And by the way, the show that I'm so happy you're tuning into this, Steve, because the show that I am doing on television for television is that I was told to think about like what are my passions and what are my desires and just sit on it for a few days. Like what is that? And I did exactly that. And I'm a big advocate of heart math and using that as a wonderful gateway to falling deep into a meditation. And also, I mean, not for nothing, it increases your heart rate variability and like it's a beautiful breathing thing. And then you can go deep. And while at one of those times when you're in that rare place or they call samadhi, where you can like fall into that space. And then if you notice it, you're out of it. Like if you fall into that space while there, this idea came through me exactly in this way. It was remember inside the actor studio with James Litton or whatever his name is. And I was like, that came into me and it said, do that show with creators. So the very next time I had with Steve, I said to Steve, like, guess what? I have this amazing idea. And I told him, a little bit about what I told you. And I have my journal in my lap, which I carry my journal everywhere. So I have all my Birmingham notes in that. And I have my Indian notes in that, and I have my Hieronjan, and I have all my notes in that. And Steve says, can I see your journal for a minute? I said, sure. And so I hand him my journal, and he's sitting across from me, knee to knee like that. And he writes in my journal, The Art of Art. And that's the name of my television show. So the support is all around us, like he had no idea I was going to say that. He just like, beautiful.
Wow.
It was available as a URL because I mean, like there's the art of everything. That was the one that was available. So I'm it's so fun, isn't it, when you get into this and it's not like it just happens. It's like that's where my document comes in. It's like my document and heart math are my non-negotiable things. And then exercise.
It has to be us like putting ourselves back into that space. So we had a guy on our show named Mark Peterson who was out hiking. He was a mountaineer and he was climbing a mountain by himself, which is something you should never do, and fell into a crevasse. And he fell about 30 feet down onto a block ice. And we did this show on him and he was 100 feet off the ground, just sitting on this piece of ice.
Oh gosh.
But he knew from his training that the best rescue was self-rescue. Mm-hmm. So instead of waiting for somebody to come rescue him, which he would have died if that were the case, because it took 5 days for somebody to show up, he started acting on and rescuing himself. So he anchored himself in. He locked himself in place so he wouldn't fall further. And then he started climbing as high as he could climb. And then from there raised his flag for 5 days straight before somebody came.
It makeshift a flag that was just, not very big, and it barely stuck above the top of the crevasse. And you could think of like this huge field of white, this snow field that he's crossed that he fell into. Wow. And it happened to be that one guy on, what is it, the 5th day, Nick?
The 5th day, the guy saw a flag in the distance, went to grab it, and Mark pulled it down. And the guy had no idea. He had no idea the guy was up there, and then taught the guy how to rescue him. So he had to help the guy rescue him.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So when you talk about getting ourselves into this space, into this giant space, right, it requires self-rescue. I think it's either T. Harv Eker. I think it's T. Harv Eker said no one is coming. And maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I just say, like I always said, it's no one is coming.
Like I always say, yeah. But the attribution isn't there. But the idea that no one is coming to rescue you is not that nobody is there to support you, because there are plenty of people around you to support you. Mm-hmm. But that starting of self-rescue is what allows that to come into your space, because we really have to start working on ourselves to open the door to other people to start supporting us and put us on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. So do you have thoughts around that?
Yeah. I like to think that the small self doesn't do the rescuing. It's your higher self, it's your divine self, because the how is usually the divine self's purview, not my small self. Because I can't, if that were true, I would have figured this whole situation that I was in out a long time before that. And so that's one thing. And as that, one time we were going on a major raft trip down the Grand Canyon with a whole bunch of Hollywood celebs and all of that. Everybody's grouchy because they couldn't take a personal assistant with them to help carry all this stuff. And so we got to the bottom. It was like 116 degrees and everybody's thirsty and dehydrated and grouchy. And then we have to repack all of our massive amount of luggage people brought, of course, because that's what you do, into little, like it's a ship of a grocery sack, but it's made of rubber and you can only fill it half full. So you can imagine everybody's sitting there doing all this for themselves. In the meantime, the guides of the river are giving us the rules of the river, and they said many of them, like you can't, like the end of the day, there's like a land rush because you got to go find a place for your sleeping bag, and wherever it's flat, and mostly there wasn't any flat place, so you have to do that. So that's one thing. And then the rules of like the bathroom, because they set up a little area where you can go to the bathroom, and where some of the rules about that I won't say. And then the second thing they said, like, listen, that you signed on for going down rapids. This is going to be they're big rapids, including lava falls at the end. And the chance of you falling out of the boat are 100%. You're going to probably fall out of the boat, and there were no helmets or anything. They said, and you're going to have to participate in your own rescue. You're going to have to get yourself to the side somehow. And obviously the boat will keep going. So we'll pull over as soon as we can, but your job is to get to the side and get yourself out of the water.
Wow.
You have to participate in your own rescue. So I did not fall in. I was like, no freaking way am I going to fall in.
You're like 98% today, guys.
Yeah. Not me. But a lot of people did, you know, and some people chose to go in a kayak kind of thing where they, of course, went up, you know, did that. But that's always stuck with me, that story, participate in your own rescue in that way. But I also know that if I would have fallen in, it probably wouldn't have been Becky saving herself. It would have been God Almighty saving Becky, you know, from that. Because what experience would I have, you know, going, you know, doing that? It's like,
he did. He kept you in the boat.
God kept me in the boat, you know. So why would I? Now I'm going to have to cross out that incapable and just write, God kept you in the boat, Becky.
Yeah,
God
right.
always keeps you in the boat. So, Steve, back to what you said. My document is not a bunch of affirmations. My document is what I really live through my heart with. And a lot of, you know, some of the interesting things about the creation of that is that I look back to, I have a couple of really amazing astrologers, one in particular that I love so much. And I don't live my life like, oh my God, today don't do this or do that or something like that. But I do know that I like
I sometimes do.
Yeah, I do.
Like, what does this fortune cookie tell me I'm doing today?
I know, right? The fortune.
See what happens.
I know. And then we save those stupid little pieces of paper, you know, as if that's something. But maybe, I mean, who knows? Everything is God, so God is all. So maybe that is it. True. But anyway, I looked back through some of the things like what I came in equipped with. I came in equipped with a lot this lifetime. You know, like being a teacher, being a, you know, like the Phoenix rising from the ashes, Mercury stuff, and, you know, and the Uranus stuff, like a lightning bolt from mind of God, you know, like I'm like my, you know, like a lot of stuff. And that I am to meet my beloved at some point. And so that's the only thing I say that is not the actual part of my life right now that's in my document. And my document says that divine intelligence and purest love has already created my beloved, including the perfect timing of our union. And then I went on and added another sentence below that, like, that was more descriptive. It was like, oh, and this is also what I want, you know. But
so I've got a story around that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, January 7th, 2022. I keep a journal called Penzu. I do it online. So it's based on the book Happy Pocket Full of Money. And your goal is to write 5,000 things of creations, declarations. And so
Nadine Larder created a book, 5,000.
She did, yeah, a little journal.
5,000 things.
5,000 things. And I'm at like 180, I think, so far. And they started fulfilling as I would write them. In January 7th, 2022, I envisioned my ideal partner. And I wrote her into creation. Now, I like to think that she had some self-choice in that, and she does. But for it to open up, for us to meet, my partner that I have now, Andrea, is everything that I wrote January. And I have the journal of what I wrote about that person and what she would be like. And
so cool.
She is all of that. And so in our meeting, we weren't looking for each other. I had stopped looking. I was good with being single. It was about a year and a half in, and we had a chance meeting, and she invited me to a concert, and we haven't left each other's side since.
I love that.
But I think once you get clear, there's a scripture that says Habakkuk 2:2. It says, write the vision clearly so that it may be delivered and that it won't be delayed. And so to write the vision clearly was the thing that I think in my past I had missed, is I didn't know what I wanted. So anything will do. It's like the Cheshire cat, you know, where are you going? Well, then any path will do. And so when we get clear on our visions and we write those visions clearly, then those things start to show up in our world, because now we know what to look for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, JP Morgan wrote something the other day. It is so amazing that I wrote a lot about that in my journal, and it's all, he was talking about having and not having. And I'm not going to say this accurately, but close to it, is that and it's in the book of Matthew, is a scripture about, to those who have, all will be given. And to those who don't have, who are not, you know, don't have, all will be taken away. He said, now that can be looked at like two ways. You can be like in fear of that. He said, in reality, it's like, it's all about your belief and your faith. And and the example he gave was that and I encourage you to find that article that he wrote, and it is amazing. And but he said, like, he was saying goodbye to his wife at the airport, and he whispered in her ear, "I'm really missing you right now, even though you're right here." And he said, like, it was so interesting that you can, like, he was missing, that she wasn't there. He was experiencing the feeling that she wasn't there. So therefore he got to have that feeling. He said, and then a couple hours later, she was gone and I was busy doing my stuff and I wasn't missing her. I was just like, it's just a thought that came into my head. And I thought about that, the whole thing about, and I really I don't have it well enough to say it. I get the concept, but it's like, I'm not putting out into the world that I don't have something. I'm putting out in the world that I have it. It's like, it's sort of like attraction, like I'm the frequency of having versus the frequency of not having. Like if I'm feeling in lack of a beloved, lack of money, lack of time, lack of everything, I just get to keep having that because that's the way God created us to be, so that we have free choice. Now, if I'm going to have, like I'm having that, I've got like wonderful relationships, including my beloved who's already been born, because I saw somebody say something about that the other day. It's funny. That's
a good
funny.
distinction.
Yeah,
I know. Someone said, like, look at Cher.
I hope you wait at least 18 years from now.
I know.
Yeah, not,
it's like something that said Cher's boyfriend is 25, and who else was it? Like another showbiz person, like who's elderly, and her boyfriend is like 30 or something. They said, so don't give up. He's probably not even been born yet. It's like, okay, not my thing. But anyway, the having, the having thing, it's like, I'm having it. And I've heard it said that way, but the way that he said it made more sense to me, or it got in deeper of just the way we go through life with our beliefs. And then having the list, yes, I want what I want, and I also know that divinity has the how in control. I don't have to have that. So
can you talk to that a little bit more? The how, when Jen Walter went through one of our programs, the 12 Journeys programs, and she talked about getting stuck in the how hole. You create a vision and you go to surrender, but then you create your vision from how, so you get stuck in the how hole. And so you start only creating from what you can imagine as the way. And so people won't vision beyond the way they think they can create it. So they set conditions on it. So if it can happen in this way, I'll create it. Otherwise, it's not for me. And so that's where I think we get so stuck in the how hole of thinking that we need to know how it's going to come about and when it's going to come about. So we think we need to be in control of timing and how. And I think those are the areas where we're not required to know the how or the timing, even if we want to put a date on it. Do you have some thoughts around that?
I do, because another thing that I love that Bashar talks about is to stay in he calls it passion, but passion, like operate by staying in what is your passion? What is your excitement? But then people are saying, yeah, but I can't be excited and passionate all the time. He said, well, no, that's what it is. It's like, and it's sort of about, it's everything we're talking about is if you pick a train, pick a train. And then now, like, okay, so my passion right now is, whatever it is, right? Or my excitement, or it could be my creativity, or it could be my joy, or because any kind of a positive emotion that you can conjure that is easy for you to conjure. And then another person that I love is Abraham, and she says, like, sort of like when you've chewed the flavor out of that gum, then chew something different. It's like, okay, so that's cool. So now I'm gonna.
Some of you've been chewing the gum for a long time.
I've chewed the flavor out of painting. So I'm when I'm painting, I love having continuity, but when I start making a mistake, it's like my head's not in the ballgame anymore. Okay, move, go do the next thing. Maybe it's working out. When I'm working out, I need to work out, and once I'm there, I love it, and I'm in the flow of that. And then when I'm, but the whole point of that is to pick a train and stay in your train. And that's back to the document again. Is like, like, I know I'm capable, confident, brilliant, and I accomplish the improbable and the impossible with ease. Like, okay, like then go do that, or then go, be generous unto the world, like nurture humanity and like all those kinds of things. I have a lot of options of how I can feel good and stay on that one train, because I also know that I can't go and I won't go back into that pity party thing. I won't do that ever again. I'm not doing that. I've made the decision, that's back to the corpse in the basement. Now I took the corpse out of the basement and threw it overboard. It's gone. There's no more corpse in the basement, because I want to live the rest of my days this way. It's a choice I'm making.
I'm going to take a note here of who to call when I have a corpse in the basement. Becky Robbins.
How to take care of those.
The word passion, if you look at it, it means to suffer or feel the emotions of. And the word passion, you go into the passion of Christ. It was the suffering, but he was willing to suffer. And it's a different kind of suffering. Like, suffering is optional. Pain is mandatory. It's something that we'll all experience, but suffering is optional. But passion is even more optional, because passion is, I want to feel the challenges of this. I'm willing to go through the emotions of this. I'm willing to, it goes back to the idea of I'm willing to suck at something long enough to be good at it. So this idea of passion isn't like this sexual emotion or this energy that way. It's I'm willing to stick with something long enough to get good at it.
Yeah, I think, and I would add to that, because this is the conversations I'm having with all these creators that I'm interviewing.
Yeah.
That it's not like it's terrible. I mean, it's not like, the guitar is a little hard in the beginning because your fingers hurt, like you but which my guitars are just newly strung. So downstairs, I need to now go play them, so I'm not guilty every time I walk past them. But it's like, it's one of those things where I think that I'm not saying that I'm never feeling sad or something, or frustrated about something. But I know that with a minute I go down that pathway, just stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it, because we can, because we're equipped. We're equipped more than most people are. We're in this amazing community. All of us in this community been on a path for a long time.
Yeah.
And now this is where the rubber hits the road. You can be on a path for a long time, but then if you're going to, like, I was on a path for a long time as a victim, like, for God's sake, stop it. Like, when are you going to stop it? It's just destructive and painful, and I'm just not willing to do that anymore. And so the idea of suffering is like, I'm not going to suffer anymore. I know, listen, something can happen in my life that causes, a calamity, right? And it's not like I don't have a heart, but I know that if I'm living the life I want to live, that's live the life that you want to live, and have that. And then you're free. And then when stuff comes along and you deal with it, you're dealing with, and you're uplifting all of humanity when you deal with your stuff, whatever it is that you're doing. And that's really where I want to be right now, is an uplifter of, I know that sounds like a lofty thing, but I mean it from my heart, is that how I am, how I'm being. We all know all of this, but do we do it consistently? That's Steve is like, for God's sake, he's so consistent with that. It's like he uses all these opportunities.
Steve just said that, like, if you're interested in sharing an extraordinary experience with this guest, DM me. I have an in with her. He knows.
Wow.
I love how you brought up "Stop It" too, though. So in Birmingham, I had talked to Lindsay Cap and Sanika, and both of us had an opportunity. I ate dinner with Lindsay in the bar of the hotel one night. Everyone else is out, like, talking in groups, and we were starving, so we just scooted over to a table, ordered some food, and chatted. And she really, like, she gave me the old punch to the jugular on how
Lindsay
I was
doesn't
being.
hold back.
Not really, but it's all from a place of true love, which is amazing. But she sent me this thing, and it's on YouTube, and it's Stop It, Bob Newhart, Newhart. Stop It.
I
Bob
know.
Newhart, right? And it's this pay this therapist to tell
Yeah.
the problems, right? Haha, stop it, she knows. And he's like, okay, you ready? And they're like, yeah. And they complain about everything that's going on. There's like all the feelings, all the things that's going on in their lives. And he's like, all right, ready? Stop it. Stop it. Just like what you
Yeah.
said. And
Yeah.
it's a freaking hilarious skit.
Yeah.
It's worth going back just to
I
look at
will
it
watch
because,
it because I
yeah,
believe in that. I believe in that.
so
Now,
funny.
listen, it's
I'll
back
send
to
it
my
to you.
thank you. It's back to my radical commitment, of the fear. Let go of any fear. That's ridiculous. Just knock it off.
Mm.
You're made of God. You're made of God for God's sake.
Mm.
Like
Right?
just live in that. Just operate through that purview of like look around. I look at what your body is doing right now while we're talking. We don't have to pay attention to anything.
Not
It's
at
all
all. Yeah.
happening for us. The how is the how. We're not having to focus on the how of what your body's doing. Even when I'm painting and I'm in that zone, which I calling all angels before I can. In my office, this is a sacred space in here. Nothing happens in here that's like, there's no news, there's no bad energy, no grouchy people. It's like
Yeah.
just good energy in here. And you know what? I might be painting and things will come through me that I don't even know how I did it. And when I finish a painting, I still don't know how I did it. It's like, can I even do that again? Because it's just so amazing that can come through me. And I know it's not Becky. I know it's the divine operating as Becky, doing that stuff. So I just stay there as much as I can.
I feel honored that we're actually in that room with you right now,
Oh,
because you're doing this podcast from that room. That means
I am right
we're
here.
in that space.
I'm hugging you right now, Becky.
Thanks, Ryan. Love it.
I want to pull some parts together here, because for somebody that's maybe new to this, for us, this is fairly routine, patterned, habituated, automated in some degrees. But somebody that's new coming in might listen to this and go, well, what about me? I'm just starting out. And we started the conversation around the victim and villain dialogue. And the first thing that people need is to recognize that we all have patterns that we've created, whether it's today or years ago. All these automations create our perceptions of the world, and that's who we think we are. And when you recognize that you're operating from that victim state, because there's a villain. If there's a villain, there's a victim. So recognize if you're that victim. And once you wake up to that, you want to navigate into a compassionate view of yourself without judgment, with forgiveness, with love, of whatever happened, what is. And now from here, where would we like to go? And that's where you're really elevating yourself into just being okay with what is, not resigning to it, not saying that this is the way it's going to be forever, just recognizing that it is that. And then you step into the unknown, and now you start playing with being terrible at new things that you've never done before for long enough to get good at those, and they become your new automations and they get programmed in. So now you're no longer that old person that you used to be. So you keep doing that, and you elevate one step at a time, 1% at a time. I have a statement here. If I can
Spiral
read
dynamics
this,
there.
it's spiral dynamics, right? It says this, and I created this. I was thinking about Nicodemus. He had traditions. He had, Jesus comes along and he's totally opposite of everything he's ever been taught. And here's a guy that doesn't fully follow and has this battle with his past, right? His traditions. And so I'm thinking from that view of, how do we overcome our traditions and our things that we've been programmed to do and step into the new? And this is the statement here: is stay curious and open-minded. Don't shy away from seeking deeper understanding, even if it challenges your current beliefs. Take incremental steps toward growth, balancing your roles and responsibilities with your evolving faith or view. Embrace the struggle between tradition and new insights. Show courage in your actions, even when it's tough. Keep pushing forward and let your path reflect your commitment to truth and personal growth. What do you have to add or adjust in that, Becky?
I love all of that because, it brings in the subject of mentoring and coaching, because I think we need one another. This came from Amy Hardison, is that in her and I wasn't there, but when she spoke in England the first time in London, at the end of her, what she said is, we belong to one another. Ugh, just got chills saying that, because in my studio, you can't see it because it's in behind me and up above, but it says we belong to one another. I had a neon sign created. First of all, it was going to say you belong here, because in my document, in the beginning of my document, it says you belong here. I belong here, because of my story, my tiger story, right? So it's like I belong here, but now it's like I belong here, like right here in this moment. So anyway, I ordered this neon sign called "You Belong Here," and I got that idea because after the Katrina horrible things that happened there with the hurricane and whatnot, right? Like people had to leave and get out of their neighborhood, right? And so some amazing artists, this guy rented this huge barge and he created a big neon sign on it that said, "You belong here," because he wanted people to come back and create community again. So I ordered a sign that said, "You belong here." And then they gave me a chance to make one last, here's the proof of it, make any last changes you want to make. And I said, yeah, I want to change the whole thing. I want to change it to "we belong to one another." And so it finally came like 4 weeks later or something, and included in the box with both signs.
Really?
They gave me one and they made the other.
Really?
And so downstairs above the painting that is the piece that went to the moon, it says "you belong here." And here it says "we belong to one another." And I think that through mentoring and coaching, we're supporting people who are on this journey, including ourselves, to have more clarity about that. And I think the fulfillment that comes from being in service is like nothing that I've known before. Just being in service is a beautiful thing.
I'm listening to a book called "Thou Shalt Be Rich." And in there, he makes a comment that if you don't hear it, if you don't listen to it properly, it could come across as abrasive. But he said, how thankful am I that there are 8 billion people on this earth to serve me. I don't have to make bread. I don't have to make shoes. I don't have to make cars. I don't have to go stock the grocery shelves, right? And how grateful are they, or could they be, that I also get to serve them in my unique way? And what a perspective, because there are all these people in this world that do things that I don't do. I don't make neon signs.
Yeah, I like that.
So
That's
that
cool.
Ties right into that. How amazing that God saw fit to stock this world with 8 billion people to serve me.
I feel that way sometimes when I remind myself sometimes when I'm paying my bills. It's like, all right, well, this money is going for the people. Like I'll pay whatever bill it is, but it's now this is supporting them and buying their kids shoes, paying their, their electric bill. They're putting gas in their car this morning because I paid my bill, like those kind of, just back to that whole thing.
It's the same idea, right? Like you also serve and they serve, and we really belong to each other.
We are each other. We are each other. That's the thing. If we can just get that I am you. I mean, I don't know why that's such a hard concept to embody, but but we truly are each other, because we're all made of God and we're all related. We're not just related, but we are each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean, we get that way with our pets. Like, look at Stephen, his new little angel, right?
So
Like
cute.
Steve is that dog, and that dog is Steve Hardison. And these ravens that have been sitting out here. One day, one was sitting about like this far from me, like close, and he's just talking. So I just started talking to him in English, and he was speaking in Raven. And he wasn't afraid of me. He just kept chirping and making all these funny sounds. Because normally they're that caw, it's a lot of like, but that day, it's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the whole capabilities that we come with, we're chips off the old divine block.
Yeah.
The ability to create anything we can imagine, the ability to learn and have passion for things, right? To be willing to suffer in not always a negative way for our creations and our gifts. And that we all have something. We all have a gift, everybody. So nobody's excluded from that. And so we have also the ability to self-rescue, raise ourselves up,
Yeah.
and move from victim to victor. So as we look at this, what else needs to be shared in this class? What
I think we've said it all because we know it all deep inside of us because we are that.
yeah,
I think that I mean, I'm happy for anybody to contact me to know more or for whatever
same,
reason. But I
yeah,
know we belong to one another. So,
yeah.
but I want to thank you guys because thanks Ryan for joining on because I asked Nick like, well, what about Ryan? Is he has to be here too. So thank you for that, and thanks Nick because this is a great it's a great opportunity for me too to just remember myself throughout this beautiful Sunday. And I'm grateful for how you contribute and your beautiful books. And thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel honored to be in your presence. Um, I see all these names pop up in the comments, and I know there are going to be a lot more comments after. Just amazing people. Lindsay served me deeply. She hit me right in the throat, basically.
Yeah.
She is a no holds barred, powerful, loving human.
Mm,
And I love people like that in my life that will
me
just,
too.
they will tell me straight. So
Me too.
yeah.
Mm.
And Liz, thank you for being here. For everybody that's watched, Ryan, did you have final thoughts? Is there anything that you feel is undone?
No, not undone.
Okay.
Just more gratitude. I had sat kind of in the front the day that Becky spoke in Birmingham, and it I just gone through that with Lindsay, and Sanika was just kind of rebooting. And then Becky talked about feeling insignificant and disposable and the tiger story. And I went up to her at the end and gave her a big hug, and of course started to cry, and we hugged for a minute, and told her how powerful and moving it was for me, and how grateful that she had gone through all those experiences, and that she's who she is. Um, and she isn't unique. She's not Tony Robbins. She's not all of that stuff. She is Becky Robbins, and she is one of the most loving, selfless, giving people that you will ever meet.
Thank you.
And so hearing her talk about how she felt insignificant really pulled the strings, and made me feel like, okay, I'm not alone. This isn't something that I'm having to do on my own, even though I'm in with myself. There's people around me that have felt this way, and they'll buoy me up and help me through this process. And so I'm just grateful that you're able to continue to do this. And Becky, you are a gift. People have said this. You're a gift for who you are and how you are in the world. And thank you for living your document. And when you're not, you clean it up super quick. I'm assuming and imagining, because I haven't seen you not live your document at all. So thanks for who you're being, and for being one of my friends and mentors and giants in my world. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you so much. And it just calls back to the anthem that I've been listening to called Brave by Sarah Bareilles. So go listen to that song today and enjoy your amazing Sonia. I love you, Sonia. And and thank you to everybody who's been commenting. I appreciate you all. It's just been such a beautiful Sunday for me. And
If I ever come back to life as in another life, I'm coming back as Sarah Bareilles. I love her music, so
great.
I don't know if
love
that's
her
weird,
song.
but that's what I'm coming back as, is Sarah Bareilles.
I'm careful what I listen to because it can hijack me. It's when I'm painting, it's like I
Yeah.
don't want lyrics to hijack me, but that song is like that's an anthem.
Huh.
So say what you've got to say. Yeah.
We had a guest this morning, Celeste Edmonds. She's the garbage bag girl. She was on the show this morning, and she said, "Home is where they can't get rid of you." And I feel like this community is that.
Mm,
That you're home. That we are all here with our unique gifts coming together.
mhm.
But the only way that you would move away is if you walked away from it. But we don't want you to go away, and so this is a great place to call home. the Ultimate Coach community, the Giants, Tribe of Giants community. Like, we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And we're doing it in unique ways. And I love the distinction and the clarity between the giants and the smalls. I feel like it ties it all together of how we often play way smaller than God made us to be.
Yeah.
It's that Marianne Williamson quote, who are you not to be giant?
Yeah.
And so I hope that those that are listening will continue the conversation. And this is live on our YouTube, Facebook, so you can share this from there. And please do. So grab the link and share it with somebody that would benefit from this masterclass, and keep the conversation going, because there's a lot more to talk about here that's happening in your world. So please do that. Guys, thank you so much for being present with us. Thank you for inviting us into your home, Becky.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Ryan. I love you.
Love you too.
Thanks,
You guys,
Nick. I love you.
You're very welcome. I love you too.
Talk
You guys
soon.
make it a giant day. Yep. And we will see you in the next video.
Okay.
See you. Bye, guys.